Heliox 9 looked nothing like the diplomatic center's Sergeant Arya Cole had trained for. Instead of polished order, the station felt alive, chaotic, humming with the restless energy of 100 civilizations forced into uneasy proximity. Metallic corridors curved like the ribs of a beast, glowing with shifting blues as its failing star cast pale light across the docking ring. Arya stepped off the transport ramp with the Terran escort unit behind her. She scanned the hall automatically, 3 exits, 2 blind corners, 1 observation balcony overhead. Aliens watched the humans with unreadable eyes, whispering behind membrane frills and armored mandibles. She caught fragments of translation pulses from their comm implants. They say humans fight with empty hands. Primitive, dangerous. If true, unacceptable. Arya gave no reaction. She'd heard worse in her years of service. Let them stare. Humans always unsettled species who relied on claws, exoskeletons, or exotic weaponry to assert strength. Arya carried no weapons today, only the navy blue uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Escort Force and the quiet confidence of someone who had survived battles long after technology failed. The Terran ambassador, Dr. Lennox, walked beside her, adjusting his silver diplomatic sash with nervous fingers. "Sergeant," he murmured, "please try not to provoke anyone. We're here to calm tempers, not ignite new ones." "I'm not the one with a habit of provoking," Arya replied softly. As if summoned by her words, the crowd parted. Commander Zyrak Thal, the infamous Varkarian war-born champion, strode forward with controlled menace. His scales shimmered obsidian black, patterned by ceremonial scars. 2 meters tall and built like a walking fortress, he carried a plasma-forged scythe sheathed at his back like a symbol of living history. The corridor fell silent. "Human," Zyrak rumbled, voice vibrating through the metal floor. "I expected your delegation to bring warriors of substance." Arya met his gaze evenly. "Then lower your expectations." A ripple of shock moved through the audience. Lennox made a strangled noise, but Zyrak only narrowed his predatory eyes. "I hear claims," he said, stepping closer, "that your species trains to fight without weapons. Such behavior is animalistic. Dishonorable." Arya kept her posture relaxed. "We train for what can't be predicted. Weapons fail. Situations collapse. Preparation keeps people alive." Zyrak's lip curled. "Weak excuses. A civilized warrior uses tools worthy of battle." Arya's jaw tightened at the words, echoes of memory rising unbidden, blinding dust, jammed rifles, screams she couldn't silence. She forced them back down. "If you believe empty hands make us helpless," she said, "you misunderstand humans." A low hiss of agitation spread through the Varkarian guards. They expected fear. They found none. Lennox stepped between them with strained diplomacy. "Perhaps we can move forward? The council awaits." Zyrak turned sharply and walked down the corridor, tail swaying with aggressive purpose. His guards followed. The moment he passed out of sight, the surrounding crowd erupted in whispers again. "Did you see her stance? No weapon, but not afraid. Humans are reckless." Arya ignored them and continued toward the negotiation chamber. The walkway overlooked the engine bay, where Heliox 9's ancient power core pulsed with unstable energy. The station should have been decommissioned years ago, but its neutral status made it valuable, too valuable to replace. A flicker of red flashed through the bay. Arya paused, watching maintenance drones scramble across scaffolding. Something felt wrong, an odd rhythm in the engine's hum, almost like a heartbeat skipping. "Sergeant?" Lennox asked. "Nothing," she said, though unease scratched at her senses. They reached the chamber. Inside, representatives from 7 species surrounded the central table. Holographic banners marked each faction. The air smelled faintly of ozone, coolant, and alien pheromones layered across years of arguments. Zyrak stood at the Dominion's podium, his posture rigid and prideful. When Arya entered, his gaze flicked toward her as if registering a threat. Lennox began the session. "We gathered today seeking a path to coexistence." "Human words," Zyrak interrupted, "are plentiful. Their strength is not. Arya exhaled slowly. Lennox stumbled but continued his speech, outlining trade routes, demilitarized borders, and joint resource rights. While the ambassadors talked, Arya studied the chamber. Multiple security stations ringed the walls, displaying weapon status, air filtration details, and access logs. Everything looked normal, on the surface. But the engine's irregular pulse still pounded faintly in her ears. A Varkarian aide approached Cyrak and whispered something. The commander's expression tightened, then he struck a claw against his podium. "I propose a demonstration," he announced, "to assess the reliability of Terran combat capabilities." Lennox winced. "Commander, this is a diplomatic session." "It is a test," Cyrak said. "If humans claim resilience, let them prove it." Arya could feel every eye turning toward her. "What kind of demonstration?" Lennox asked cautiously. Cyrak gestured to a small platform. "A standard weapon proficiency trial. Let your escort show her skill." Arya stepped forward before Lennox could object. "I'll participate," the ambassador whispered harshly. "Sergeant, please." "This is controlled," Arya said. "He wants to measure us." "Let him." Cyrak activated the platform. A holographic drone appeared, projecting a sequence of motions mimicking weapon-based combat. Arya picked up the testing baton. It felt weightless, barely more than a training wand. She moved through the demonstration smoothly, striking, redirecting, and countering with efficient precision. The drone recorded every motion, projecting stats in the air. The audience murmured. Some impressed. Some skeptical. Cyrak's grin widened. Adequate. But manufactured. What of true combat? Arya tilted her head. Looking to spar? The hiss of amusement rippled through the chamber. Cyrak raised one talon. Not today. But soon. I wish to see what strength exists beyond your machines. Arya returned to her post. The test accomplished nothing except fueling Cyrak's fixation. Hours later, the negotiations recessed. Delegations dispersed into the branching halls. Arya and Lennox headed toward their assigned quarters. The corridors were quieter now, but the station still vibrated with unrest, subtle, growing. Sergeant, Lennox said quietly, I know you think you're helping, but antagonizing him only endangers the treaty. He challenged us, Arya said. Letting it pass would show weakness. We're diplomats, Lennox insisted. Not warriors. You invited a soldier, Arya replied. Let me do my job. They turned into the residential sector. Suddenly the lights flickered, once, then again. The station's hum dropped to a low, uneven growl. Arya froze. The rhythm she sensed earlier pulsed stronger now, radiating through the floor like an approaching storm. Something's wrong, she whispered. A sharp alarm erupted, echoing through every level. Warning, system instability detected. Security protocols pending. Lennox looked at her in alarm. What does that mean? Arya didn't answer. She had a feeling she already knew. Heliox 9 was about to fail in a way no one expected. And somewhere deep inside, someone wanted it to. The alarms faded into a low, uneasy hum by the time Arya reached the Terran delegation's conference suite. Emergency lights washed the corridor in red bands, stretching shadows along the walls. Engineers hurried past with diagnostic tablets, muttering in 3 different languages. No one seemed entirely sure what had triggered the alert. Inside the suite, Lennox paced in front of the panoramic window, which looked out at the dying blue star. Its unstable flare cycles crackled across the glass, giving everything a restless shimmer. We're not even halfway through the negotiations, he said. If Heliox 9 collapses on us, every faction will blame someone else. Chaos is the last thing we need. Arya checked the wall console. The status grid displayed intermittent yellow warnings across power conduits, environmental control, and weapons authorization. Nothing catastrophic, yet. Engineering crews are working on it, she said. The alarm ended quickly. Probably a stabilizer fluctuation. Probably isn't a word diplomats enjoy. Lennox forced a shaky smile. Especially when Varkarians are involved. Arya didn't argue. Zyrak's presence alone could turn a calm meeting into a battlefield. His disdain wasn't hidden, and he had the authority to steer his faction toward hostility with a single command. A knock sounded. The door slid open, revealing a Heliox 9 liaison, thin, pale-skinned, with luminous patterns pulsing beneath translucent flesh. The Heliox species communicated partly through color shifts. The liaison's glow carried a tint of stress. "Ambassador Lennox," the liaison said, "the Council requests your presence in Chamber 3. Commander Zyrak has raised a formal grievance." Lennox sighed. "Already?" Arya stepped beside him. "I'm coming with you." "Of course," the liaison said. "Security escorts are permitted." The walk to Chamber 3 felt heavier than earlier. The station's usual hum carried a subtle imbalance, like a machine breathing unevenly. Arya couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had triggered the earlier alarm wasn't a simple malfunction. Inside the chamber, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Delegates murmured in small clusters. Zyrak stood at the center, surrounded by his honor guard. His posture was rigid, eyes sharp with challenge. When he saw Arya, his frills flared, an unmistakable Varkarian signal of provocation. "Ambassador Lennox," Zyrak said loudly, ensuring everyone heard, "your escort disgraced the Dominion with her earlier remarks. Humans forget their station." Lennox inhaled carefully. "Commander, Sergeant Cole responded to your remarks. Let's keep our focus on productive dialogue." Zyrak stepped forward. "Dialogue requires truth. And the truth is that humans exaggerate their strength. Claims of unarmed training insult the foundations of civilized warfare." Arya didn't speak. The chamber wasn't a battlefield, and she wouldn't let him steer her into one. One of the council members, a crystalline Syrinx, spoke. "Commander, this is not a combat arena. What grievance do you wish the council to address?" Zyrak gestured to Arya with a sharp claw. "I demand demonstration. If humanity insists it possesses strength worthy of respect, let it show us. Prove these tales of empty-hand combat are not myth." Arya felt Lennox tense beside her. He whispered, "Decline. Please. The treaty can't support humiliations." But declining wasn't an option. Zyrak would twist refusal into accusation. He would claim humans hid weakness. And the Varkarians, already skeptical of human readiness, would turn it into a political weapon. Arya gave a small nod. Permission to step forward. "Commander," she said, "we're not here for contests." "Yet you participated earlier," Zyrak snapped. "That was a training test," she said. "Not combat." "Then step into combat," he challenged. "No blades. No rifles. No advantages. You claim humans are prepared for all scenarios. Let us see what your species can do without your toys." The chamber fell silent. Arya spoke slowly. "If you want a demonstration, set the terms." The council members whispered among themselves. Zyrak's frills relaxed into a predatory calm. "Honor duel," he declared. 3 controlled engagements, no lethal intent, overseen by neutral monitors. Lennox pinched the bridge of his nose. "Commander, we're in the middle of peace negotiations." "The duel will influence the negotiations," Zyrak interrupted. "Strength earns respect. Weakness dissolves trust." Arya met Lennox's gaze. "If we withdraw, the Dominion will interpret it as submission." Lennox closed his eyes briefly. "Very well. But keep it under control." Zyrak motioned toward a circular platform in the center of the chamber. Its surface shifted into a textured combat floor as the station AI activated the environmental hologrids. Arya stepped onto the platform. Zyrak's champion, a younger Varkarian with jagged red frills, joined her. His claws were sheathed to prevent lethal cuts, but his size alone made him an intimidating opponent. The arena lights dimmed. The audience leaned in. The duel began with a single gong-like tone. The champion lunged immediately, fast, aggressive. Arya sidestepped, redirected his momentum, and sent him stumbling with a quick shoulder shift. Not flashy. Efficient. The champion regained balance, snarling. He charged again. She ducked under a sweeping arm, pivoted behind him, and used a joint lever to pin him briefly before releasing. Controlled. Clean. Murmurs swept through the chamber. Varkarians rarely saw grappling techniques. Their culture favored direct strikes. Round 2, the announcer called. The champion approached with more caution. He tried to corner her, using size to his advantage. Arya stayed fluid, reading his intentions. When he aimed a heavy blow, she closed distance instead of retreating, turning his momentum into a takedown that left him flat on the mat. The crowd reacted with mixed surprise and disbelief. Zyrak's jaw tightened. Final round. The champion, now visibly frustrated, attempted a feint to draw her guard. She didn't fall for it. The moment he overextended, she caught his arm, shifted her weight, and brought him down in a controlled lock. He tapped the mat. Submission. The arena lights brightened. The champion rose stunned. Arya stepped away, breathing evenly. The chamber filled with hushed voices. Even rivals from other species looked impressed, or unsettled. Lennox whispered, "You handled that masterfully." Zyrak approached the platform slowly. "Your skills are unexpected." His voice held no admiration, only a grudging acknowledgement. Arya didn't let her guard drop. "You asked for proof. You got it." He leaned close enough for only she to hear. "This doesn't end your test, human. I will measure the truth behind your strength myself." Then he turned and marched out of the chamber, his guards following in rigid formation. As the delegations dispersed, Arya noticed something irregular on a security display, an unauthorized access shift in the engineering decks, timed precisely with the earlier alarm. The pattern repeated now, subtle but clear. Someone was moving in restricted areas. Someone who knew the station's vulnerabilities. Lennox exhaled shakily. "If today is any indication, the next sessions will be challenging." Arya studied the blinking alert before it vanished from the screen. Challenging was an understatement. Something dangerous was unfolding aboard Heliox 9, and Zyrak's obsession was only one piece of it. By the time the sunless blue star slipped behind Heliox 9's docking ring, the station had shifted into an unnatural tension. Engineers scrambled through narrow maintenance tunnels, their translucent uniforms flickering with emergency indicators. Every deck carried the low hum of failing stabilization cores, a rhythmic vibration that seemed to crawl through Arya's bones. "Status report," she demanded as she strode past a squad of Terran Marines toward Deck 12, the diplomat holding zone. "Weapons offline across the entire station, Sergeant," replied Corporal Nico, his voice tight. "Energy rifles, kinetic launchers, even plasma-forged blades. Total systems lockdown. Unknown cause." Arya's jaw tightened. "Protocol Delta." Her voice was low but precise, the emergency measure every Terran soldier feared. "Every combat system dead. We're on hand-to-hand only." "Exactly," Nico said, unease creeping into his tone. "All those alien factions, they're frozen in panic. They don't know how to fight without tech." Arya didn't answer. She already knew. She trained her unit for this, drilled until survival without weapons was instinct. The Varkarians, Bronts, and Syrinxes, creatures of claws, plasma, and armor, had never imagined a species that relied on adaptability rather than hardware. The first breach came silently, as if it had been waiting for the perfect moment. Alarms barely alerted the station before a squad of armored Varkarians slammed open the heavy doors of Deck 12. They expected fear. They expected hesitation. What they found instead was Arya. She stepped into the center of the room, calm, surveying 36 diplomats clustered in fear. "Marines, cover the exits. Everyone else stay low." The Varkarians charged. Forearmed, plated in dark scales, claws extended. Their hisses filled the chamber like a predator chorus. One reached Arya, swinging a claw in a horizontal strike. She ducked, grabbed his forearm mid-swing, and used his momentum to throw him into a bulkhead. The metal shrieked under impact, but he remained conscious, disoriented, defeated, but alive. The rest advanced. She moved like a storm, a leg sweep here, a shoulder lock there, deflecting strikes, redirecting blows, and taking advantage of every overextension. Each movement was economical, precise. Humans had mastered vulnerability as a weapon. The diplomats watched, wide-eyed. Some whispered in disbelief. "She's unarmed," one muttered. "And she's controlling them." A bronze warrior, twice Arya's size, with 4 spiked arms, lunged. She sidestepped, sliding under his swinging limbs, and tripped him with a sweeping kick. He toppled, his bulk shaking the floor, but Arya was already on her feet, moving toward the next threat. Even trained Varkarians faltered. Their strength was formidable, but rigid. Arya exploited their predictability. She used their weight against them, their momentum, even their cultural insistence on honor in combat. They hesitated to strike lethal blows, thinking she would obey the same rules. They were wrong. Zyrak appeared at the observation balcony above, eyes narrowing as he witnessed the chaos. He had expected humans to falter without technology, to be cowed by armor and claws. Instead, he saw efficiency, fluidity, and adaptability. Every attack Arya made was calculated, every move a statement. "Impossible," he muttered. His tail lashed against the railing. "They should not, cannot, overcome us like this." But overcome they did. Arya moved between a diplomat and a charging Varkarian, catching him mid-lunge and flipping him backward with a practiced throw. The room's acoustics amplified the impact. A dull metallic thud echoed like a drumbeat. Corporal Nico and the rest of the Marines engaged as well, employing human martial techniques she had taught: pressure point strikes, leverage holds, rapid incapacitations. The aliens were strong, but they were untrained for this. Unarmed combat was a human specialty, honed across millennia of necessity, adversity, and battlefield improvisation. Then, the sabotage became clear. The Varkarian squad wasn't acting independently. They were coordinated, synchronized with the station's subtle power fluctuations. Someone knew the exact moment the weapons would fail. Someone was using Zyrak's arrogance and the station's instability to orchestrate chaos. Arya realized the pattern mid-fight. She barked orders. "Move the diplomats to the emergency lift! Delta Protocol stairwells only! Keep together, keep low!" One diplomat froze, terror etched on his face. "Sergeant, what about them?" he asked, nodding toward the Varkarians advancing. Arya glanced at him, voice sharp. "I'll handle them. That's my job. Do yours." Her movements became faster, sharper. She disarmed one alien with a precise wrist twist, using his own momentum to hurl him across the chamber. Another she trapped in a chokehold, holding him until he tapped out in submission. The unarmed human was a force the aliens could neither anticipate nor comprehend. From above, Zyrak's frills flared. He descended the observation ramp, finally entering the fray. Unlike the other Varkarians, he moved with lethal grace, honed in decades of combat. Yet even he faltered as Arya anticipated his strikes, dodged, countered, and redirected energy in precise bursts. "You're skilled," he said through clenched teeth, frustrated. "But this is not the end." Arya met his gaze, calm and unshaken. "It is for now. The diplomats are safe. That's what matters." The fight drew attention from other decks. Station monitors displayed dozens of species frozen in place, uncertain how to respond without weapons. Humans like Arya were rewriting their understanding of combat in real time. Even seasoned soldiers gawked at the efficiency, adaptability, and sheer audacity of a single unarmed human leading a small squad against superior force. Minutes stretched into eternity. By the time the last alien adversary was restrained or incapacitated, the deck was battered but intact. Walls bore dents, scorch marks from misfired energy discharges, and the faint smell of ozone. The diplomats were shaken, but alive. Arya exhaled slowly, scanning the room. The station AI sent warnings across every channel, alerting security to continued anomalies. She understood the implication immediately. this was far from over. Whoever had orchestrated the sabotage wasn't done. Zyrak, standing across the chamber, observed her without moving. There was no rage now, only disbelief and grudging acknowledgement. "You survive without weapons," he said quietly, almost to himself. "I did not believe it possible." Arya didn't reply. She checked the security logs again and saw subtle traces of movement in restricted zones. The real threat had not yet revealed itself. The chaos she had just survived was only the beginning. And Heliox 9, this station of diplomacy and politics, would test her next in ways that no training, no matter how rigorous, could fully prepare her for. The observation arena was silent except for the low hum of Heliox 9's failing systems. Emergency lighting bathed the floor in pale blue, and shadows stretched across the high ceiling. The diplomats had been moved to a secure sector. The deck now belonged solely to Arya Cole and Commander Zyrak Thal. Zyrak's massive frame filled half the platform. His scales shimmered obsidian black, frills raised in challenge, tail coiled like a striking serpent. "I underestimated you," he said, voice resonating through the chamber. "Humans are unpredictable. Agile. Too resilient for my taste." Arya stepped forward, her knuckles relaxed, eyes steady. "I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to prevent more deaths." He snorted. "Your species calls it honor. I call it illusion. Today, you will show me whether humans truly possess the strength to survive, unarmed." The duel began with Zyrak charging. His claws, though sheathed, could crush bone. The sound of his steps echoed, a rhythmic drum of inevitability. Arya sidestepped, letting his momentum carry him past, then spun to deliver a precise elbow strike to his side. Zyrak grunted but recovered instantly. "Good," he said, almost grudgingly. "But not enough." He lunged again, faster this time, swinging a claw in a wide arc. Arya ducked under, sliding forward to catch his arm mid-swing, twisting it with leverage he hadn't anticipated. The sound of a tendon snapping, or nearly, echoed. Zyrak roared, more in surprise than pain, and recovered with a fluid roll backward. "You rely too much on instinct," he hissed, eyes narrowing. "I will test your limits." Arya's breathing was calm. She had trained for this, years of close-quarters drills, simulations, and martial conditioning. She didn't need weapons. Her body was a weapon. The battle shifted across the arena in a blur. Zyrak's strikes were powerful and deliberate, built on centuries of rigid Varkarian training. Arya's counters were fluid, unpredictable, exploiting gaps in his technique. Every feint drew him into traps, every pivot turned his strength against him. The duel became a conversation in motion, no words, only action. Zyrak learned quickly, brute strength alone would not win. Strategy, adaptability, timing, qualities humans had refined over millennia, gave Arya an edge. Then, mid-fight, a sudden alert flashed across the platform's holographic display. A security breach, Deck 7, Auxiliary Core Room. Saboteurs. The same pattern she had suspected since the first alarm. "Zyrak," she said sharply, "the chaos wasn't you. Someone else is manipulating events." He paused, eyes flicking toward the readout. "Impossible," he growled. "No human could foresee." "You don't understand our species," Arya interrupted. "We survive by reading patterns, exploiting weaknesses, adapting. That's why we're alive. That's why the diplomats are alive." Zyrak hesitated. His rigid honor code didn't allow doubt, but the evidence was undeniable. Systems breached in parallel with the weapons lockdown. The Varkarian elite had been manipulated by extremists within their own faction, warmongers who wanted to reignite conflict. Arya seized the moment. With a feint, she disarmed him briefly, forcing him to stumble, then locked him in a leverage hold. The Varkarian's breathing was heavy, his frills flattened in tension. "You see now," she said quietly. "Strength isn't just claws or plasma. It's understanding, adapting, protecting those who can't defend themselves." Zyrak's eyes met hers. For the first time, respect and disbelief intertwined. "Your species fights with spirit alone," he said. No weapon can rival that. Arya released him, stepping back. Weapons fail. Systems fail. Humans don't. He recovered, a deep rumble of acknowledgement. Then perhaps the stories I heard were true. At that moment, the station AI confirmed multiple security breaches. Arya and Zyrak acted instantly, combining forces. She directed him toward the auxiliary core where the extremists had set up traps, while she neutralized intruders using hand-to-hand combat. Together, human ingenuity and Varkarian discipline dismantled the plot. The saboteurs were caught, cornered, and subdued. Evidence confirmed the extremists' plan to sabotage the treaty and trigger war between Terrans and the Dominion. Without Arya's leadership and Zyrak's assistance, the station, and the delicate negotiations, would have collapsed. With the crisis contained, Zyrak faced her once more. His armor was scratched, his scales marred, but his stance carried new respect. You spared my life, he said. That earns more honor than any victory with blades. Arya nodded. Strength without compassion is worthless. You may have forgotten that in your pursuit of supremacy. He exhaled, tail coiling slowly, frills lowering. Perhaps humans are not the fragile creatures my people believe them to be. The diplomats returned to the chamber, shaken but unharmed. Lennox approached, relief written across his face. Sergeant Cole, you did it. You saved more than just the ambassadors. You saved the treaty. Arya glanced at the observation platform where the Varkarian guards now stood silently, reassessing her. We did what had to be done, she said. That's all. In the aftermath, Zyrak stood beside her briefly, an unexpected ally forged through combat and necessity. Your people will command respect, he admitted. Not for technology, not for weapons, but for resilience. For spirit. Arya allowed herself a small, tight smile. Humanity doesn't need to prove itself with weapons. We survive because we adapt. We fight because we care. The blue star flared in the distance, casting light over the battered but surviving Heliox 9. Somewhere across the galaxy, rumors of humans' unarmed prowess would spread, rewriting assumptions, altering the balance of power, and instilling awe in even the most battle-hardened species. For Arya, the personal victory was quiet. She had faced fear, controlled chaos, and overcome her lingering guilt from past failures. She had proven, in the most visceral way imaginable, that humans could fight, and win, without steel, without plasma, without anything but their will, their ingenuity, and their courage. Zyrak, watching the humans depart with the diplomats, muttered under his breath. Perhaps the galaxy underestimated them, for the last time. And Arya knew it was true. Humanity had survived not because of weapons or technology, but because no one, and nothing, could outmatch their resolve. Heliox 9 exhaled a low mechanical groan, the station itself seeming to acknowledge the victory. The alarms had stopped. The diplomats were safe. And one unarmed human had rewritten the rules of war in the galaxy. The battle was over, but the legend of the human who could fight without weapons had only just begun.